Hayden Carroll is doing something really special. A la Charlie Kirk, he is setting up tables and signs that provoke conversations about religion, about Latter-day Saints, atheism, etc. It's really fascinating to watch. You learn a lot, and it's very enjoyable, very entertaining.
Where did God and when did God say that the 66 books that you read today is the final authority? Like, did he say it? And if he did, where? And if not, why do you believe that? Because it seems like you're preaching or someone's salvation, her salvation is dependent on you because you have to be the one to go tell her about it.
This episode is brought to you by Go and Do Travel and the Gospel on the Nile cruise. We do a river cruise going down the Nile. We hit all of these different temples, the pyramids, the Sphinx, the museum. It's absolutely incredible. You will see all over the walls of the temples, your temple experience. It's fascinating. It's like nowhere else in the world where these structures are 80, 90, 95% still intact. It's incredible. And their history is written right there on the walls. You'll learn more about the temple there in Egypt, I believe, than anywhere else except for in the temple itself. Go to cwicmedia.com, CWICmedia.com, trips and events at the top, and scroll down to Gospel on the Nile. Here's Hayden Carroll. Welcome to Cwic Show. My name is Greg Mattson, and I am your host. In this episode, we bring on Hayden Carroll, who is doing something very similar to what Charlie Kirk does, setting up a table, I believe at universities, and asking questions to students. Hayden, how you doing?
Doing so good, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Good. Tell me what you're doing. You're setting up this table? Do you have a sign in front or anything? What do you have going on?
Yeah, I have different banners that I use, but it's the Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk. It's actually more like Steven Crowder where he has the banner. His said changed my mind. Mine says let's talk. And so I have really 3 different banners that I'm using right now. One of them is about atheism and some disagreements I have with that. One of them is about Trinitarianism. And then one is I'm a Mormon, ask me anything. So
okay.
Yeah, that's
you're setting these up at universities?
Yeah, Arizona State University as of now.
Oh,
yeah, I have
Are you here? I didn't know you were here.
Yeah, I'm in the East Valley.
Okay, I'm in the East Valley. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're setting these up, 3 different types of banners. Tell me about the reaction that you're getting on this. Are the students willing to talk?
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the percentage of students that stop obviously is very low, but when you have thousands and thousands of people walking by you during class time and things like that, you get quite a few. It's 99% really positive reactions, people who want to talk, people who are friendly and kind. And then you have the 1 out of 100 or even less than that who want to yell and scream and, tell you that you're doing it wrong or whatever it may be. But it's very positive response. And I'm really enjoying it and learning a lot and meeting a lot of new people. It's fun.
How long are you typically out there?
Just depends on my schedule. Couple hours if I can make it. If I have a free day or something, I might go out for 3 or 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. And how many people will stop by in that time?
I probably get anywhere from 4 to 8 really good conversations recordings. Yeah, it's kind of wild. I just started doing this about a month ago, and I probably have several months, 4 to 5 months of content ready to produce. I release a video twice a week. Every Monday and Thursday, I do an episode.
Every Monday and Thursday, you drop a new episode. Okay. So tell me of the three banners you put out there, the 3 different topics, which one gets the most response?
Yeah. You know what? I need to clarify. I actually just got the I'm a Mormon banner in the mail today. So I haven't used it yet, but that's going to be my next one. The atheism one. So the atheism banner says atheism is unreasonable and stupid. So it's a little provocative, but I actually have arguments for both. I think it's unreasonable I use the teleological argument from fine tuning, the design argument. Okay. And then for the stupid, I basically explain when people are like, you think atheists are stupid? I say, no, I don't think atheists are stupid. A lot of them are really intelligent. I think the implications once you accept atheism leads you to a worldview that lacks common sense and doesn't line up with our world. And there's 4 really that I use. I say, the most honest and prominent atheist voices in our world today say that atheism leads to us believing that we have no free will, no morality, no purpose, and no consciousness. And so I say on the standard of common sense, atheism is counter to that in those four categories, essentially.
Okay, so let's go to this. So we've got a clip that we'll put in here, but you've got one where you're talking about this fine tuning. Explain that a little bit more, and what is the response as you talk about these constants?
Yeah, so essentially the fine tuning argument, the idea is that it is a fact. Atheists and theists alike would agree that our universe is finely tuned. Now, the debate is, how did it become finely tuned, right? And it's finely tuned to permit life. And so the idea is that there are physical constants such as the gravitational pull or the cosmological. I mean, there's a whole list, and in the video, I think I show them a little list. You can just look it up on Wikipedia. What are the physical constants of the universe? And they are such that if they were different, even by a hair's breadth, life would cease to exist. We wouldn't have life in the universe, not just on the earth, but in the universe. And so essentially there's three different arguments that somebody, or options that somebody would give to explain the fine tuning. They would either say it's by chance, they would say it's necessary, which is another variation of chance. And then we would say that it's from design. We would say that the odds are so low, astronomically low. And I think the number is, if you do the math, if there are 20 physical constants and each physical constant has 10 billion options in it, if you do the math, it comes out to 10 to the 200th power, which is an insane number because the amount of atoms in the known universe is 10 to the 80th. So it's like me showing you all the atoms in the whole known universe, and you can only pick one. And if you don't pick the right one, then we don't exist in life. And so essentially I have these conversations, and a lot of people, well, some people know of the arguments. Most of the people I talk to don't know the argument. Those who do will argue for chance or necessity. They have something called the anthropic principle. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's the idea that, of course, we're observing life because if life were not permitted, we wouldn't be able to experience it, which sidesteps the question. It doesn't even answer the fine-tuning question, but they'll use that in the conversation. They'll use the multiverse. They'll say, well, if there's unlimited universes, then eventually we're going to get one. And the issue with that is that as an atheist, they usually only accept empirical evidence. And so the only question you have to ask is, what empirical evidence do you have for the multiverse? And they always will say, well, no, it's just a theory. Yeah. So anyway, it's really fun. You start talking about it, and people who know about it, and a lot of people are learning for the first time, so it's fun to talk with them.
So as you're talking about, what do you think is maybe one of the best arguments you've heard for atheism? And are these students, do you find that they're pretty knowledgeable for the most part? Those that stop by? Those
that stop are, I would say about half or a little more than half are probably familiar with the design argument. Some of them are not, but if they stop and they, in my experience, if they want to talk, they kind of have thought about it before.
Yeah, they've got an opinion.
There are some people who are just like, what do you mean? Like, what is this all about? And I'll give it to them, and they don't have much to say. They kind of just accept it, or kind of say, I don't know much about it. I'm just going to learn. But as far as like the best argument, Greg, I don't know if there is one. Sometimes they'll try to muddy the water and say, well, like, how can you say that this is not the kind of universe that had to exist? And the easy response to that is, well, life isn't necessary for the universe to exist, right? Having a life-permitting universe is not a requirement for the universe to exist. It's like a subcategory of the universe. So if we can imagine, the idea is, if we can imagine a universe where there is no life, which we can, then that logically follows that it's not required. Right. Mm-hmm. It's not a logical necessity that life is permitted. So the necessary argument doesn't work. Other than that, they would just leave it up to chance and say, yeah, I just agree that there's a 0.00001% chance, and we just happen to land there. A lot of them will say, well, if you have unlimited time, then eventually the constants are going to line up. And the response to that's kind of like a multiverse variation. The response to that simply is, well, no, these are constants. They do not change. So unless, because what you're saying is eventually they're going to line up and the dials are going to be correct. Mm-hmm. But my concern is, why are they still not dialing? Like, they are staying. We rely on these to do our science today. That's why they're constants, essentially.
There are laws.
Yes, essentially it's laws.
There are laws, which means there is order.
Yes, that's exactly. And they would say chaos produced order. And we would say it's specified complexity. There's no place in the universe that we can see where order comes strictly from chaos, right? It's always designed by an intelligent mind, essentially.
Now, there's another clip on basically on atheism, and it's more of a moralistic clip that has basically it's Hitler and Mother Teresa are equal in terms of their morality.
That's right.
Because it's a very postmodern argument that the student's making, which is, hey, there's no objective truth. It's in their own minds, their own capacity, their own morality. Even Hitler thought he was doing what was right. So he couldn't really condemn him for going against, at least, going against morality, right?
Yeah, I mean, and think about it in an atheistic worldview, especially if you don't have free will, which I don't think that young man believed in free will either. I think he was being consistent there. How can there be a moral right and wrong? Right? Morality implies that we have a choice. So if, like, the question I like to ask them is, could Hitler have done it differently? And the consistent atheist would say, well, no, like, he was caused to do what he did, not by any free will. Free will is an illusion, is what they would say. And so once you accept that pill, then you basically have to say, yeah, people aren't choosing right and wrong, and therefore there is no objective standard because we can't judge them based on what they can't control.
It's just so interesting, that argument, because it's that whole free will is so important to spirituality and to an understanding of God and theology, right? It's like if you remove that, you almost have to remove God.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they both have to go together, because otherwise you are simply manifesting your carnality, or the atoms that make up your mind and your body and everything else.
Your chemical reaction.
It's chemical reaction is all that there is. Therefore, why do I care?
Yeah.
Why do I care that I could change your mind? Or why do I care that I could influence you for good? Why do I care that I would love you?
The concept of good and love doesn't exist. They're illusions. If consciousness is an illusion, then so is love, so is pain and suffering, right? Everything that we experience is not actually real. And realize that I love the consciousness argument. The idea is that here's what I like to do. I point at the table when I'm talking to atheists, and I say, can this table produce something that is conscious? And they always say, well, no. And I say, okay, so are you telling me that there has always been a conscious being? Because I'm conscious, you're conscious. And so if consciousness cannot come from non-consciousness, then we have a huge issue here. That means that something conscious has always by necessity needed to exist. And if consciousness exists today, then it's always existed. And so that's a general theistic argument. One point on the free will, I think that you really enjoy, and this is something that I've been thinking about recently. The only, how do I want to say this? The only option that we have, or the only solve that we have to be able to actually have true free will, is if we've existed forever individually. And here's what I mean by that. Atheists would agree that because we're caused back to some cause that we don't have control of, all of our actions are predetermined, right? They would be determinists, essentially. Now, Calvinists, Reformed theology, and the Christendom would say that, yeah, everything is predetermined by God because he's the first cause. Mm-hmm. We as Latter-day Saints, we don't struggle with that problem because we believe that we are each eternal. And so my point is, in order to actually have true free will, you actually have to be eternal. Because if you're caused,
great point,
then that's something that you had no control over, and you're just the domino. But if you've existed forever, then you actually have true free will. So I would critique mainstream Christianity to say that only God actually has true free will in their worldview, because he's the only thing that's uncreated. But for us, we would say we're all uncreated in that agentic sense that we've always had a choice.
So let's move to a different banner here. Let's talk
the Trinity.
Or if not, let's talk about the Trinity just for a minute here. And this is obviously going to be the majority of the students that are going to ASU. They would be those that would have some type of a creedal belief, and are going to be identified very closely with this. And this is something so interesting about the majority of Christianity, almost all of Christianity, is that they identify primarily with this concept of the creeds, that are dominant, and really, the whole idea of sola scriptura is put to the side.
Yes,
because you actually have the creeds that supersede them. Right. In Christianity, it's you say, well, sola scriptura, I only believe the Bible's infallible. It's This is what I believe. So, well, wait a minute here. No, that's not true.
Yes.
Your whole structure of belief with the Bible being supreme actually comes from the creeds.
That's exactly right. And to be fair to them, they would say that the creeds are perfectly, well, I don't know if they would use perfectly, but they are in line with the Bible, and that if a creed is wrong, that it should be changed, right? So they wouldn't say that they only go to the Bible for salvific truth, but rather the Bible gets the final say. And their argument is just that the creeds align with the Bible. So the Bible does get the final say, essentially. But you're right. It doesn't align with the Bible, yet they would prioritize the interpretation of the creeds over maybe even a plain reading of the text of the Bible itself.
Well, even their identity. Yeah. Even their identity as a Christian is primarily based, as I see it, because I have this discussion all the time, is primarily based on the creeds. In other words, you and I, Hayden, aren't Christian,
right?
Because we don't believe in the Trinity. I mean, that's the number one issue. There are other things, obviously.
They would just say, well, the Bible does teach the Trinity, and the creeds just clarify it. And so that's how they get around it. But I totally agree with you. And I always ask, I mean, the simple question you'll see in those clips is, and I was talking to a Calvinist today, and I asked the question, show me where the consubstantiation, homoousis is the Greek word, of the same substance between the Father, Son, and Spirit. Where is that taught in the biblical text anywhere? Mm-hmm. And they'll say, well, it says the Father and the Son and the Spirit are one. And I say, well, what's the word? The word is not the same word that was imposed upon the text centuries later. And in the same way, in John 17, in the intercessory prayer, Jesus asks for his disciples to be one, but he doesn't.
They're obviously not part of the Trinity.
Yes, right. And it's interesting because he says, let them be one as we are one, as you and I are one, in the same way that we are one. And he's not talking consubstantially. And I think that's an easy solve. And I haven't yet heard a good argument for it. As far as
I mean, really, they're using, whether they're speaking Aramaic or not, they're using the Hebrew echad, which is also means union.
Right.
And that's obviously based on that example. That is obviously what John is speaking of. There.
Consubstantiation didn't exist in the mind of the biblical authors, right? They were not teaching it.
Yeah, and the logos is very different from what it is imposed later on, but the logos has been around in Greek philosophy all the way back to Heraclitus in the 6th century BC. Right. He's the first one I know of that had actually spoke about it. But it existed well before that too. And so it's a matter of, okay, you've got an academic, it is academia. You got an academic philosophical idea of logos, and then you've got this John idea of what he's talking about. And it's very different, but it's very easy to see how people get confused with it. Yeah. Because, I'll say this on a little bit of a tangent. In my belief, we find that in the New Testament, the Old Testament is different, but in the New Testament, you have, we can go pretty far back and find transcripts in Greek on the books of the New Testament. Pretty far back. I mean, not all the way, but pretty far back. It seems to me like the plain and precious things that we lose from, especially the New Testament, almost come from a perversion in a philosophical, cultural lens.
It's the Hellenization, as they say, of Christianity. Hellen meaning Greek in Greek. It's putting on the Greek glasses and then reading the text through their Greek metaphysics and trying to make sense. And I always say it like this, that essentially what was happening is the early church fathers and church members were simply trying to appeal to the Greeks in a way that they understood. So, as you've often probably heard Jacob Hansen say, they're appealing to the God of Aristotle in order to appease them, to bring them into Christianity, which it worked really well. But when you impose that upon the biblical text, it really causes a lot of issues because you have, contradictory nature, or the idea of the contradictory nature of God in the biblical text that doesn't align with their what we call perfect being theology that was imposed later on in probably the 4th, 5th century.
Yeah, and going all the way to Plotinus and getting into the Neoplatonism and whatnot, it's very, that had about 100 years to foment before the Nicene Creed was put in place, and it was just spread throughout academia, etc. It's interesting, though, about that point you bring up, Hayden, because that's a little bit of what we have to deal with today. I mean, we may not be going to the Greeks, but we're going very much to a Trinitarian Christianity and very different type of belief in what God's nature is.
And they don't even realize
kind of lean that way to sometimes to kind of, for some it's acceptance. For some Latter-day Saints, I think it's acceptance. For others, it's bridging, right? Creating bridges. Right. But there's an issue there of do you, if I'm reaching out and putting an olive branch out to the rest of Christianity, am I losing my back foot? Right. And bringing that forward also. Right. Yeah, I think it's the same kind of idea as what you're talking about with the Greeks.
No, 100%. Like, I mean, we don't have to get into any controversial topics, but I might just stick to what Christ said about the creeds himself, right? Do we believe that Christ said the creeds are an abomination? And are we trying to draw from those to make common ground? I'm not sure it's the best way to do it. Yes. Actually, what I found as I've been tabling, Greg, is when I share my beliefs that are different, okay, let me say it like this. When I talk to somebody who's not so theologically like stuck in like a particular interpretation of the Bible or denomination, when I share with those people who are kind of more open and not like married to a particular theology, when I share what's different about us, it almost always resonates with the person. I often have people say, oh yeah, I actually kind of agree with that. For example, like age of accountability, right? When I talk about like our babies, like with original sin, our babies going to hell. And I don't know how much you know about this, but as I do study and talk to Christians, they're getting more and more away from the idea that original sin condemns them to hell. They're getting to the point where they're saying, well, if they're not accountable, then they're not going to hell based on Adam's transgressions. Like that has never been the position up until maybe 15 minutes ago. So anyway, as I share more Latter-day Saint doctrine, I get more and more people agreeing with me. And so I don't have to, and here's the thing, I think is if you're upfront and honest, that people actually appreciate that more, even if they disagree with you on the front side, that they come to appreciate the difference because, well, it's not just like everything else. And actually, it's actually funny that we're talking about this. When I started the channel probably about a month ago, I honestly didn't really want to make the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints the centerpiece of it. I kind of wanted to keep it more neutral, right? Hoping that maybe I could have an audience that was not necessarily LDS. But what I came to quickly realize is that every single person I talked to, every conversation I had, the restored gospel of Jesus Christ was applicable to that conversation. And it was so difficult to hold off on talking about that now I've just fully embraced it. I'm not afraid, because a lot of the atheists will start to critique general Christianity, mainstream Christianity. And I'll have to say, hold on a second. That doesn't apply to me. Let me give you a new way of thinking about this. And
we've got a solution to that.
Exactly right. And I have yet to find somebody who has any critique on us that's not related to a particular creed, right? It's always drawing back to those creedal positions. And my response is just, it's simply not biblical.
So when you're making that because you're not putting the Mormon banner out yet. So you're making that transition and you're bringing up the gospel, or you've got one here where you're talking about one clip where you talk about Joseph Smith and
Book of Mormon,
writing the Book of Mormon, and how is it possible that he could have written it in this amount of time? Are you a little anxious about the response at that point if you've already talked to him for 10 minutes? Or
no?
How does that work for you?
I hand out Book of Mormons all the time. I probably hand out 5 or 6 Book of Mormons a day.
Awesome.
And now I've gotten to the point, because actually when I started, I didn't have any Book of Mormons with me. And I saw some comments that people said, like, why are you not giving the Book of Mormon out? And originally I think it's because I was more hesitant to like say, hey, I'm a Latter-day Saint. I was kind of like trying to almost hide it. And I hate to say that, but like I didn't want to scare people away with any presuppositions they had about us. But now I've realized within a couple of weeks that it's actually the best thing to do, is to share the truths that we have, because it solves the issue. And then I always give them a Book of Mormon, or offer it to them anyway.
Yeah, and of course, where we're at, I mean, there is a knowledge of the Mormons, right? I mean, certainly there's a knowledge of the Mormons. Yeah. Most everybody that you're going to be walking by you has friends that are Latter-day Saints, more than likely. So
it's actually funny. I had these 2 young women walked up to me, and they didn't want to sit down in the chair, but they were like, "What are you talking? Like, what is this?" One of them, I think, was Islamic, and she was kind of talkative, and she said, "Like, wait, the Trinity? Like, what are you talking about?" And I said, well, I'm a Latter-day Saint. Some people call us Mormons, and, we believe in the Father, and we believe in the Son, Jesus Christ, and we believe in the Ghost. And she said, wait, Mormons believe in Jesus? She's like, I thought Mormons didn't believe in Jesus. And I'm like, oh my gosh, This is a real-time example of why we need to use the name of the church. Like, anyway, people criticize me for calling myself a Mormon still, but I try to differentiate when it's appropriate.
Do you think that putting the Mormon banner out is going to cause a little bit more tension and conflict? And maybe it should. I don't know.
You mean from people who walk up and talk to me, or with my viewers?
No, I mean or even passersby.
No, I think I have yet to find somebody who has. Well, there was one guy. He was a member of the Assyrian Church of the East, and I don't know much about him, but maybe related to Eastern Orthodox in some way.
They're Assyrian. That's what they call themselves. I'm Assyrian.
Yeah. And when he found out that I was LDS, he shut down. That we only had like an 8 or 9 minute conversation, and you can see in the recording, as soon as he learns that I'm a Latter-day Saint, he basically like puts the microphone down. He's like, I'm basically done. Other than him, I have yet to have a very negative response to me being a Latter-day Saint. And so I've become very comfortable. Not that I was uncomfortable saying that I was a Latter-day Saint, but I was a little unsure of how people would respond, and it's been very positive.
So you realize early on that, okay, the gospel applies to most of this, and being that you're a believing Latter-day Saint and you know these truths, it's pretty hard to, hide your light under a bushel, so to speak.
Totally, because we're talking about all these issues of Christianity, and then I'm like, wait, I got to solve for that. I can't just like leave it at that, because also, like when I'm tearing down the Bible, like when I'm criticizing a Protestant on Sola Scriptura, if I don't provide an alternative, it kind of just looks like I'm tearing down the Bible. But I always try to end by saying, like, look, I don't think the Bible has to be perfect. I do believe in Jesus Christ. I think it's very reliable. And then I introduce idea of modern day prophets, things like that. So I always try to like give a solve with the critique anyway.
Right. So do you see, let's say you're going to start putting this banner out on just Mormons. Yeah. There it is, blatant in front of me. Look at me. Here I am. Right. And so do you think it will move more toward that? Is that where you're going to get more reaction? I think you might. I don't know. I think you might get more people coming up that are interested in what you have to say. They may have never really spoken with somebody who's a Latter-day Saint. Yeah. And then you're going to get people that are going to come up and be maybe a little bit, I'm not going to say necessarily combative, but are going to try and tell you their point of view.
Totally. Yeah. Or they're going to tell me what I believe. Right. Sure. It'll probably be mostly evangelical Protestants, I assume. But yeah, I'm expecting a very positive response, but who knows? I mean, maybe it'll be an unpopular banner, right? The banners I have now are kind of provocative in the sense that it's making a claim. This banner isn't making a claim for someone to have an argument against. So we'll just see if people are curious. That's what I'm kind of banking on.
Do you see it possibly moving more toward that specifically? Hey, like, I'm a Latter-day Saint. Here's what we believe. I mean, you've got a good background and study and philosophy and history and Christianity generally. And so if you can give a Latter-day Saint point of view on these issues like you are already, essentially, but starting it off with, hey, this is who it is, who I am and what I'm talking about. Yeah. You see it moving a little bit more toward that?
Potentially. I mean, we just need to see. Literally, I just got the banner in the mail today. Like when I walked in, I picked it up off the porch. If it's popular, if I feel like it's doing more as far as getting the gospel message out, I may do that. It's actually funny. I feel like as I read the comments of the videos, I see a more positive reaction when I'm talking to people and not being as combative. Like it seemed like the viewers actually enjoy less debate and more like conversation, which I'm all for. Sometimes it doesn't get heated, I wouldn't call it, but there's definitely times where I'm having conversation where I'm going back and forth with somebody, which I actually enjoy, and I think they enjoy it as well. But it seems like the viewers want more of a lower pressure missionary discussion almost. And that's not what I'm doing, although it does feel like I'm giving the first discussion over and over again, which is so fun. But I just don't know quite yet. We're kind of still cooking in the kitchen, if you will, to try to figure out exactly what this is going to be in the future. But
what I really like about what you're doing so far is that you're taking, like I've seen you before with Jacob and et cetera, is you're taking it from an educated point of view on several different topics and science. You're talking about the cosmos. You're talking about morality. You're talking about all of these, and that's where you have to get. I believe. I mean, to have a fundamental understanding of something, I think you have to be able to get to those fundamental issues.
It's the level one conversation.
Everyone's going to respond to. I mean, is there truth? right?
Yes.
Is there truth? Is there an objective truth? Is there order? And all of these issues here, if you can get to that level, you can really have a great discussion without saying God is three people separate and it's set, right off the bat. It's such a difference, and you get educated responses.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It reminds me of speaking of Jacob Hansen, his pyramid of belief. He has like the level 1 conversation about reality. And that's why are we here? Like, how did we get here? And once we decide that there is maybe a God who interacts with us, we move to Christianity versus Judaism or Islam. And then we move from Christianity to Latter-day Saintism in comparison to Reformed theology or to Arminian or to all the different denominations, essentially. And then there's even one more pyramid on top of that. And is it President Oaks who's the prophet? Or is it Warren Jeffs? Or is it the Bickertonites? Or is it the RLDS? I mean, it just keeps going up as far as I'm concerned. There's at least 4 levels. But you're right. At the very beginning, where most people can have the conversation is at the bottom, which is some of the most fun. I will say I really do enjoy talking with the atheists. And like I said, that tends to be the more popular banner. I think people see my Trinity banner and they're a little hezzitant because maybe they're not versed or feel well versed in any theological training whatsoever. It's funny, actually. Ratio Christi, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're like they're a college apologetics international group that has chapters in different campuses. Every time I go and I'm talking about the Trinity, I text the chapter advisor and I say, hey, I'm out here talking about the Trinity. Come send members to chat with me. And sometimes they do come and sometimes they don't. But typically I get a pretty good turnout. It's a better turnout with the atheist banner than it is with the Trinity banner. But you still get some on both.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. All right. So Hayden, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter or X at Let's Talk with Hayden Carrol.
Let's Talk with Hayden Carrol. All right. I recommend everybody go over, check it out, subscribe, find out what he's doing. It's very interesting. It's provocative, but it's educational also. So go check it out. Hayden, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, Greg.